Welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at World of Warcraft, in particular the height of the game, 2008. Let's journey back. The release of Wrath of the Lich King, one of the best expansions, if not the best, and definitely the best time of the game. It was at its height of popularity, capital cities were full of players, and the future looked bright. So, as any company would do, they ventured into other avenues. First off, it was the trading card game, a few years before the release, but it was actually quite fun. I remember trying it at a comic convention here in the UK, and I didn't actually play it at the time, but I would come back to it, and I do own some of those cards now. Basically, in the game, you would venture out in a group, very similar to the MMO itself. You would create a party of heroes, you would have different spells, different abilities, different weapons, and then you would fight your way through raids, dungeons, and collect the loot. So each class had their own specific loot they could use. Obviously hunters would take everything because it was Wrath of Lich King, but you had the opportunity. One other really cool thing they added with this was prize cards. Now you could basically in a booster pack pull a card which would earn you stuff in the actual game. So it could be party grenades, it could even be mounts. Of course I'm talking about the Spectral Tiger, which at the time of filming, the last one sold for £4,100. Can you imagine if you played back in the day and you just scratched it off without really thinking? You just wanted a cool mount, and now it's the same as like Pokemon cards though. You wish your younger self had kept better care of them so they'd be worth something now. Or if you just had them now. I wouldn't sell mine, but it would be cool to own those things. Slightly different with the mount. I guess you do own it in game, but in that case, I think I'd rather the £4,000. That's not why we're here today though. I will get into that shortly. I just want to thank Dan Miles, my first ever Patreon. I've never even mentioned it on the channel, so the fact that he's found it, thank you so much. Not only for finding it, but pledging. I'm normally going to do these shout out things at the end of the video, but this was my first Patreon. I was taken aback by it, honestly, that someone would enjoy what I'm doing and want to support it. So thank you so much, Dan, my first and only Patreon. Like I said though, that's not why we're here. We're here to take a look at the World of Warcraft miniature game. Now, around this time, I was heavily into the MMO itself, so I wasn't looking at miniature games, I wasn't playing trading card games. A lot of my time was sank into this game. Look at that face. Good God. Why is there a montage of pictures of me from just playing World of Warcraft? It was a different time, it was a fun time. I played with a ton of friends from college and new friends I met through the game with my brother. It's just, most people I knew played it, people from work. So it was just a good time to play World of Warcraft, and that's why I say it was the best time for the game. But miniature games were very popular. Obviously Warhammer had been going a while at this point. Middle-earth had come out not too long before. We had the Pokemon trading figure game, we had Mage Knight, HeroClix. There were so many of different interests for people to enjoy, so obviously World of Warcraft had to join that. Like the other titles, HeroClix and Pokemon, you could get starter sets which would have selected figures. It would have the rules, how you play, the map, all of the stuff you needed to get started. But you could also get blind booster packs, which is, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I love nothing more than opening a HeroClix booster. It's the randomness of it. It's for fun miniature figures. You can't really complain. In the game, you could take on favourites such as Tyrande, Thrall, Leroy Jenkins, I noticed on the list. I'm pretty sure that only happened around that time, because that was when I was, or maybe I only saw it then. Yeah, I'm just looking, and yeah, Leroy Jenkins was a while before, and yeah, there is actually a figure of him. I'll flash it up now. That's kind of cool that they went to that effort and appreciated how big that was for the game. It's something they don't really do now. They're not really as in touch with the community, but it's a cool thing back then. I just wish it had stuck around, honestly. I think a lot of companies lose that touch with players now though in the community, so it's not just Blizzard, it's just, yeah, it's a little more difficult to do these days. In the game, you could do skirmishes, which was much like the PvP in the MMO, so like a Warsong Gulch type thing. You would basically have to reach objectives to get victory points or kill off your opponent. There was, I think you did respawn very similar to the game, but I'm sure there was some, you could play different rules. There was a few different things. I never really got heavily into the miniature game, but as well as that, there was also the game type very similar to the card game where you could run through automated dungeons with friends. So you could do it competitively, so who scored the most points or most kills, or you could do it co-op and just play together and try and beat this pre-generated dungeon, which actually sounds really cool. Both of those game types are something I would love to play. and the miniatures themselves looked great. Now, I do actually have some of them. So, I might not have played at the time, but afterwards I did pick them up. I don't know why, I just love World of Warcraft. I bought a few boosters of it, grabbed some figures, and the rest is history. Try and show you some of them. So I have got quite a few. The problem now is, I either pay quite a bit of money to get the starter set and the proper rules, or my other option is, it's gonna take me so long to collect these as well. So I have just been using them, if you've been watching the channel, I've just been using them for D&D because they're the right size, really cool looking models. I'm kind of shocked how good quality they are because it's a hobby thing, so you don't have to paint them yourselves, which some people will hate, some people will love. I actually love, because I play HeroClix mainly as my big one, and I don't have to paint those. It's just nice opening a booster, and then I could play this at the game store straight out. Obviously you could unpainted, but it's a little bit different. Yeah, I've just got a ton of these things. My favourite by a mile is this. Sort of the iconic warlock look. If you remember I can't remember if it's a headgear or cape or something, but you can actually get that in game. But yeah, there's just some really cool figures. I don't have any of the best ones or any of my favorites. I pretty much just got some random monsters. But like I said, they are still very cool to use for stuff like D&D. And if there is much interest in this video, maybe I'll get some of these together. I'll look up the rules, I'll get some more figures, and maybe play a game of it. It's a bit of a shame, but as we've seen time and time again, stuff like this, any IP or ready-made IP that's made into miniature games, it's always got a shelf life. Obviously, there's only so much they can do with it. They're not going to create their own stories to piss off the fan base. They're just going to add what has been done so far. So recently, The Walking Dead was cancelled from Mantic Games, which I was absolutely gutted by. Huge fan of Walking Dead, but they had sort of told the story. There was still more they could do, but even then, I think maybe a contract to run out somewhere. Maybe they didn't have the license anymore and it wasn't worth renewing. But yeah, it's just anything with an IP has a shelf life. And unfortunately, World of Warcraft did as well. But where does that leave WoW and your options to enjoy Azeroth outside of the MMO now? So there's actually a few options. You could always pick up the miniature figures. You could always pick up the card game and the older stuff and still play it. Still holds up, you can still get all the bits you need. So that would be my first suggestion. If you want to focus more on the war side of things and the races against each other, Horde versus Alliance, you could look at the Small World of Warcraft. Now, it's based on the game Small World with a Warcraft skin to it, but Small World is one of my favourite board games of all time. And with that theme, I think that would probably replace the regular for me. Huge fan of WoW, so anything with that skin's going to look good to me. And this game looks good. It's got all of the races, even the pandas. Depending on how you feel about that. I actually quite like them, so. But yeah, that's one option. The other option would be the Wrath of the Lich King board game. Now, this is based on the Pandemic system. So if you played Pandemic, it will be familiar, although there is quite a lot new and different. But as well as that, we get some cool looking miniatures. Again, we get characters like Thrall. We get Sylvanas, which might have fallen out of favor, Varian Rin. Just some really cool characters, the iconic big names, leaders from the game. But you also get stuff like an Ice Crown Citadel, you get the golems, I can't remember what they're called, they've got an actual name, you get the zombies, even get the Lich King himself. Now these are unpainted, so you'd have to paint them up yourself, or use them how they are. It's just a really cool way to play in that era, the Wrath of the Lich King era, on a board game, but the nostalgia really kicks in for me. So you could get those friends you used to play with, get them around, play a board game, and finally stop the Lich King once and for all. Again. As always, there's a ton of ways to enjoy WoW. Even the MMO itself, I find myself slipping back in now and again. Let me know your favourite memories with the game below. Let me know if you've tried any of these offshoots of the MMO itself. If you've made it to this point, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.